Okay, so Pankaj, last night when I reacted to your essay, I had just come home from my lecture, my talk, and I had a few beers, and when I I forgot my computer at work, so I'm reading it on the phone, and the first thing I read was, um, "There is no doubt that if people knew." And as I'm not your teacher, I kind of like forced you into being my student. I'm going to do the easiest thing in the world, right? I'm going to take somebody who's got nines in reading and listening and uh, teach him what he needs to do in writing to to get to a seven. Well, hopefully I've done that, and uh, I don't expect you to remember everything that I've told you, and then I don't remember everything I've told you because there's a few things that I guess I assumed that you knew. Like, for example, let's take a look at this essay. The best way to tackle the problem of obesity, best way, is to educate people about healthy eating. To what extent? To what extent? Gotta cover that. Do you agree or disagree? Give reasons for your answer, including relevant examples from your knowledge or experience. You need to remember to appreciate each type of question and what that type of question is asking. Here it's to what extent do you agree or disagree? And you need to cover that part. To what extent? Right? What does that mean? It means that you need to make explicit statements that, I somewhat agree or I partially agree or uh, I don't quite agree. I'm not convinced. Okay, now, one of the things that I expected you to remember was that it was about starting an essay with nowadays. I posted a video about, it was a take on someone else's video about the worst way in the world to start your essay is with the word nowadays. Well, it's not the worst, but what it does is it sets up the reader to be prepared to read a mediocre essay. Remember, the average writing score worldwide is 5.5. Okay, and so 6.5 is great for world on average, and you're setting the wrong tone by starting it with nowadays, and then with this type of statement of the number of people who are obese has been increasing. Okay. Again, many of your peers do this because they're following the guidelines that someone who is trying to get people up to a seven has taught them. This is, in my opinion, not a very good way to start an essay because there's nothing in the question that says anything about the problem of obesity becoming more prevalent, becoming increasing. It doesn't say that. So why are you including it? It's a canned line and it has been increasing. We usually use the present perfect continuous in relation to time. Like it has been increasing over the last few years. Well, nowadays, I suppose, is a time expression. Uh, um, however, while. Hmm. However, I think you need to save that. While it is argued, okay, you're showing off, you're using good grammar, but it's very common grammar that a lot of people do, using the impersonal passive. It is argued that the best way to solve the issue of obesity is to educate people about them. The best way to tackle the problem of obesity is to educate people about healthy eating. The best way to solve the issue of obesity is to educate people about the food items they eat. That's not quite the same as healthy eating. But what disturbs me is that you're just mirroring the syntax, the word order of the question. Best way is to do this. Why don't you mix it up a little bit? Okay? Don't follow this same pattern. and say something like, yeah, however, while, okay, well, that would take away the while, but uh, educating people, teaching people about nutrition and healthy uh, uh, dietary choices is argued to be the best way to the best way to solve or to confront the issue of obesity today. You know, mix it up, not just the words but the order. I do not agree that it is the best way. It is the best way, the best way. You can paraphrase that. And to what extent do you not agree? All right, I don't want to hurt your confidence here because you're a good writer, and again, I expect you to have read everything I wrote, but no, that's unreasonable. Using expressions like "there is no doubt" it has to be done very carefully. The question is, if people were educated about healthy eating, then then the problem of obesity would be reduced or solved or handled, right? Okay, that's the question at hand. Is it true? I mean, if that's true, well, then perhaps it is the best way. Well, you don't just say perhaps it's true. You say there is no doubt that if people knew what effects the food they are about to take, they would. Okay, so question is about grammar. Yes, this is a correct use of a second conditional. Yay! If people knew, past tense, they would. However, this conditional part carries throughout the whole phrase and even beyond it. So if people knew what effects the food they were about to take take food what effects the food they were eating would have on their body, they would think twice before consuming it. Okay, think twice does not mean not do. Think twice means, maybe I shouldn't have. Oh, it looks so good, I'll eat it anyway. So it's good vocabulary, but it doesn't follow that people aren't eating it. It just means that they would think twice. And then they'd eat it anyway. I would. Consequently, they would be. Okay? The effects of the unreal situation continue in the paragraph. You're talking about it. So they would be likely to have healthy food more often and would try to avoid unhealthy food. And then moreover, oh God, moreover, really? Okay. This seems very important, right? This is the whole point. That if they know, they won't eat it. But moreover means that the next part is more important. If they were already obese, they could make necessary adjustments to their diet. Necessary adjustments, good vocabulary. Okay, so in this part, you talk about avoiding unhealthy food. And we continue to think that's what you're talking about. They could make a necessary, so they would cut out bad food. But no, but for your example, you use food items, not good collocation, such as citric fruit. So here it's foods that they should increase, that they should eat more of. This is not an example of what came before it. For example, certain food items, certain food choices are high in fat, etc., etc. However, you did do a good job of connecting the example back to what we were talking about, sort of. Although active, you can't eat a food that makes you more active. This is just affecting digestion. However, despite the obvious benefits, of education, it is not enough to tackle the problem of obesity. First of all, despite the obvious benefits, education alone is not enough to tackle the problem. And you're just copying words from the question. Governments must pass some legislative changes. How about laws on the food industry? Food is an uncountable noun, as is fast food. Must be taxed. And foods. Okay. So now you're switching idea. Governments must tax food, but now you're switching back to the idea of education, but there's no transition there. This is not a very good linkage between the two ideas. But they cannot be assured that every citizen has learned it. High calories food. Be careful with two nouns together. They have to be a collocation. Otherwise, this needs to be an adjective. What is the adjective for calorie? Caloric. If two foods which are high in calorie, or if high calorie could be a hyphenated word. High calorie food were taxed, the buyer would know. See, now you messed up your conditional. Would come to know the moment. Would come to know what? Since he would have to pay a high price for it, there would be a high chance that he would avoid such food items. He's trying to buy it, right? He's not avoiding it. I mean, therefore, taxing food is more effective than educating people. This sounded like you were a lot more sure than this. In short, although educating people about the benefit of eating healthy, I didn't say benefit, is a good step. It is certainly not the best way. Okay, legislative amendments, laws, undesired food items. There's food item again. Can. Now, can. If you think it, then it's not can, it's would or will. These laws aren't going to be passed, but will, not can. Yes, you got them mostly right. But you can do it. You can do it, man. I know you can. But don't use nowadays. And think of a better lead into the topic than has been increasing, becoming more popular these days. Avoid there is no doubt or other terms of expression. And make your opinion clearer. Okay? From the beginning. It is argued, based on what you said, the nowadays number of people who are abused has been. However, government provided education about diet and exercise would be more effective than simply talking about food alone. Anyway, it is argued that the best way, some say the best way is to educate people, but I think that taxes hit people in their pocketbook. and are much more immediate than the uncertain results of people learning things. Because it's definitely, when you teach people things, it's uncertain whether or not they'll learn it. I'm going to send you some links.